Hey guys, it's Mrs. Yeagle again. This is chapter 9 of The Darkest Hour. We just finished the end of chapter 8 and she uncovered what Operation Zierfall was. And it's a plague, which in case you guys don't know, is like a really severe illness that spreads very quickly and has the potential to wipe out a lot of people in a very short amount of time. So it sounds like the Nazis have developed some sort of like major plague that they can kill most of the population with. Let's see what she does. Chapter 9, page 110. The folder tumbles from my lap and spills around my shoes, the photographs landing in a horrific ring around the chair. Dorner leaps up to collect it all, but I don't move to help him. It's hard enough to breathe, much less lift a finger. So this is what Hitler has in store for the Allies. Millions infected, millions bleeding, millions dead. Knowing the Nazis' taste for killing, they might just succeed. How can the Allies fight a disease with our bullets and tanks? The rage multiplies in my heart, a burning furnace that makes me want to smash everything in this room, Dorner included. He may have turned his back on these experiments, but he did play a hand in bringing about Zierfall. If it weren't for Major Harkin's orders, I'd be putting my skills to good use and strangling the life out of Dorner this very minute. But what if Dorner's lying? That question rises in the back of my mind, and I clutch my fingers around it. There's the possibility that Dorner could be spinning a magnificent yarn for a free ticket to England. He could be a Nazi agent sent to France to gain my trust and admittance onto British soil. It wouldn't be the first time Germans have tried to infiltrate the Allies. But why would they give Dorner such an outlandish cover? The Germans are smarter than that. Far smarter. I wish I could get Harkin's input. And where's Sabine when I need her? She should have arrived by now. I stare at Dorner's folder and I know there isn't time to waste. Whether Dorner's telling the truth or not, or whether he's a German spy, I need to get to the bottom of all this. My work here is far from over. You've told me quite a story, Dorner, I start. His head shoots up, confusion filling his big eyes. Story? You think I've been lying to you? It's possible. He takes the folder. You have the proof in front of you. You have it right here. Those documents could have been doctored. Why would anyone go to the trouble of that? For safe passage to England? The last piece of his proper exterior begins to crack. I risked my life leaving Germany. I committed treason coming to you, and you believe I did all this to travel to England? There are spies everywhere. I'm not a spy. Anger twists his features, but he has enough resolve left to rein it in. Why is that so difficult for you to believe? You had a prestigious job in Germany. You had a long career ahead of you, yet you gave it all up, along with everything else that you knew. He goes quiet. Then deliberately, he opens the folder and turns it to the photo of the little girl. Here's my reason. This is why I left. Because of one patient? For all of them. He closes his eyes. Though I'll never forget her. She was 10 years old, a Jehovah's Witness. She never spoke or cried like the others, but every day she would look at the clock on the wall. For days I wondered what she was waiting for. Perhaps her family to come through the doors? But her parents and brother had already succumbed to the virus. He clears the wobble from his voice. Later I realized she was waiting for death. Silence takes me by the throat. I think about what that little girl went through, from losing her family and then losing her own short life that had barely started. And for what? For the crime of her faith? I can't help but think about Ruthie and what would have happened to her and her mother if they'd lived in France instead of America. My hands knot into fists so tight that I lose all feeling in them. I did the same thing after Theo's funeral, too. Mama had bought flowers and a tombstone, but we didn't have a body to bury beneath it. That's what the army told us. My brother was laid to rest in some grave in the Algerian desert, but I bet that little girl wasn't even given that. I turn my attention back to Dorner. All of his politeness has been stripped apart and replaced with the haunted man in front of me. Admittedly, I'm glad to see him looking so miserable. I've seen the Zierfall patients with my own eyes, he says, and I've worked next to the scientists who developed the disease. If you have your doubts, then let me clear them. It's the perfect answer, spoken with the right amount of gusto, but I know Major Harkin wouldn't fall for a pretty answer so easily. Tell me about the virus, I say. How did the Nazis create it? He wipes clean the lenses of his glasses. They didn't create the virus per se. We don't have the ability for that. What they did instead was send research teams to places throughout the world where deadly diseases sometimes occur. The Orient, for instance. The jungles of South America? I'm not quite sure where he's leading me, and so I motioned for him to go on. One team in particular discovered a disease that struck at the mouth of an African river. So in 1938, they built a facility there to observe it, and eventually they gathered enough research to bring 3 live patients to Europe for further study. A tingle washes down my spine. The Nazis have been at work on this mission for years. Since before the war started, at the Führer's behest, he was the one who named the initiative Operation Zierfall. I grow cold all over. Leave it to Hitler to concoct something like this. It's not enough that he's conquered half of Europe. He wants to bring everyone else to their knees as well. What are the symptoms of Zierfall? I ask. A fever, to begin with. It's usually accompanied by a cough and a sore throat. I jot down as much as I can in my memory. What else? There's not much else. Not in the first phase. The pen in my mind comes to a hard stop. What happens in the second phase? That's typically when the bleeding starts from the orifices, from the eyes and nose especially. I try to ignore the shudder rolling through me. It's no wonder why the patients in the photographs look so racked with pain. I don't even want to think about my next question, but I have to ask it. And after that, the third phase? Dorner's fingers tug at his shirt buttons again, and I know his answer can't be good. There isn't a third phase. After the second phase sets in, a handful of patients may survive, but most will succumb to the disease. I sink back into my chair, and there's no use hiding my horror. I don't know much about diseases, but Zierfall sounds worse than the Spanish flu and the Black Death put together. Then a new question knocks at my thoughts. If the virus is that contagious, why aren't the Nazis afraid of contaminating their own forces? Oh, they're well aware of that. He shifts his attention away from me and onto his muddy shoelace. That's why it's taken years to launch Zierfall. The disease is ready to spread, but our team couldn't do that without risking the lives of German troops, so they had to develop a cure first. There's a cure for Zierfall? That's the key to the entire operation. Every German soldier must be inoculated against the virus before the Führer unleashes it on the Allies. He turns through the folder's papers until he stops upon a photograph that I must have missed before. This is the mastermind of Zierfall. This is the man the Allies should look for. He holds up a blurry photo of a gray-bearded man who looks like Santa Claus's younger brother, with a face as round as a Christmas pie. Dr. Elias Reinhard. He's the head of the laboratory that I worked for, Dorner continues. Reinhard. I remember Trevor mentioning that name to me. I pull the photo out of Dorner's hand and scrutinize it until I've memorized the lines of Reinhard's face. If he truly is the monster that Dorner has painted him to be, then the Allies will need to learn as much as they can about this doctor and kill him. When will Dr. Reinhard be ready to launch the disease? I ask. A few months, I believe. 2 months? 4? I don't know. I wasn't privileged with that information. I point at the folder. You know all of these details, but you don't know when this whole fiasco will start? I was an assistant, and a low one at that, and I stole those documents, remember? Merde. If you don't know when Reinhard will deploy the operation, then do you know how he'll do it? I was never told the exact details, but I do have an idea. Well, he'll deploy the victims themselves. I'm not sure if I've heard him correctly. Deploy them in what sense? Reinhard will transfer the first phase patients into Allied territory when they're at their most contagious. He'll parachute them into London or pack them into transport boats headed toward the British seaports. The disease is spread by air then? No, from contact with bodily fluid. Then we'll tell the Brits to burn the boats and shoot down the others. I'm no military strategist, but they won't be able to get them all. I should mention, too, that the patients don't need to survive the journey. The corpses are infectious as well. Someone would have to bury them, and that someone could easily pass on the illness to others. I breathe in, but still feel breathless. This Dr. Reinhard has thought of everything, hasn't he? Where's Reinhard's laboratory located? And don't tell me you don't know. You worked there. I know the coordinates. I memorized them, in fact, he says. It's the exact news that I wanted to hear, but there's a cautious edge to his voice that I'm not sure about, like a cornered dog with its hackles raised. What are those coordinates? He stares at me with those big blue eyes of his, but they don't look so innocent now. I'll tell them to you once you've agreed to my terms. Terms? I want to go to England. I want immunity and citizenship too. In return, I'll gladly work with British intelligence and tell them everything they need to know about Zirfal. I believe that's fair. I glare at his audacity. That isn't how this works. You came to us, not the other way around. Give me those coordinates. If I do that now, who's to say that you wouldn't stick a knife in my throat? I have to protect myself. You must see that. This isn't going according to plan. Harkin told me to interrogate Dorner, which I've done, and then deliver him to the British if he's telling the truth, which might be likely but has not been determined. Only now, Dorner is withholding information from me, information that I need, and I don't like it one bit. Then I realize my mistake. I let our interrogation tip much too far in his favor. I let him sweep me up in his story about Zirfal. But I'll show him who's in charge. I reach into my pocket for the pistol pen that Sabine gave to me, twisting it open to reveal the barrel inside and pointing it straight at Dorner's Nazi heart. Give me the coordinates, I tell him. He raises his hands but shakes his head all the same. Shoot me now and the coordinates die with me. I don't need to shoot to kill. I point the gun at his kneecap. I can shoot to maim. You can survive well enough with one leg, but you'll be in so much pain that you'll wish I'd turn you over to the Gestapo. Just when I think I've got him, he lays another one on me. If you shoot me, in the leg or the arm or wherever else, I won't tell you the name of the double agent within your resistance. What are you talking about now? I learned something in the laboratory not long before I left. Cautiously, he brings his hands down back to his lap. There was a patient there, a Frenchman. He claimed to be part of the resistance movement and said he'd smuggled himself into Germany to bomb a rail station. How does this have anything to do with the coordinates? I nearly slap him again, or maybe I should go with a punch to the gut, but Dorner's quick to continue. When this man learned that he was next in line to be injected with the Zirfal virus, he broke. He started spilling secrets left and right, and he was apparently a higher-ranking member of the resistance. So, he told us there's a double agent within the Allies' espionage network. This agent is in France, in Paris to be exact. In Paris? He certainly has hooked my attention with that, but I don't put the gun away. I keep it right where I want it pointed. You really expect me to believe the words of this man, a patient at your laboratory who the Nazis likely beat and tortured? He told me something else, Dorner says. He said that this double agent isn't French. Then what is he? I scoff. Finnish? Either British or American. The man wasn't sure which, but that must narrow down your choices. My heart thunders. The Americans have barely entered the war. They could have parachuted their spies into France. You seem to be making many assumptions above your pay grade. Are you willing to take that risk that I'm lying to you? He has me there, and by the way his back has gone straighter, he knows it too. I think of the most awful French words I've heard. The chances that he's lying to me are high, a desperate move he's making to push me to take him to the coast. But what if he's telling me the truth? What if there really is a double agent within the resistance? There aren't many foreign members within the group. A couple brave Brits and a handful of other nationalities. Canadian, Dutch, and yes, American. Could it be someone within the OSS? Within covert ops even? I shove that thought aside and curse Dorner for even planting it in my head. Delphine is rotting in a Nazi prison, and Sabine might be joining her soon. My agent sisters are risking their necks every hour of every day, and I trust them far more than this Austrian standing in front of me. And yet I can't ignore what he has told me. Do you want to bargain with me, Dorner? Then let's bargain. Tell me this supposed double agent's name, and I'll make arrangements for you to get to England. If not, I'll choke it out of you. He tilts his head to one side, measuring my offer. Here's what I have in mind. Bring me to the Brits, alive and well, and I'll give you both pieces of intelligence. That's not how this is going to work, I say through tight teeth. If he wants this to go to blows, then so be it. We'll see how long it takes before he squeals like Trevor. I lurch onto my feet, ready to throw him to the floor, but before I touch him, there's a pounding below us. Someone is at Madame Rochette's door. Sabine, maybe? I shake my head. She'd never make that much racket. They're here, Dorner says, his body tightening. I close the distance between us and place a firm hand over his mouth. I don't need to ask who they are. It's the Nazis.